Welcome to the Love Pod, where inspiration, vision, and real connection come alive. Wherever you are, you belong here.
Welcome to the Love Pod, everyone. I'm your host, Nathaniel. I'm so pleased to welcome a special guest today, Bill Quateman, who I know we're going to have a really wonderful conversation about regenerative health. And Bill, it's really such a privilege to have you on. You have such an amazing background in working in regenerative medicine and up to 32 years of tutorial with some amazing holistic professors of psychiatry and some really amazing movers and shakers in the fields of holistic health and regenerative health. I mean, everything that I see here is um, just so impressive. And I've been studying holistic health now for probably my whole life. It led me to a background in indigenous wellness. And so when you talk about regenerative medicine, advanced biocell technology, and like ozone therapy, this is at the heart of so many conversations amongst families nowadays with all the health things that have happened to our society as a whole and some of the concerns that people have. Conscious parents are asking a lot more questions. So I'd love to just dive into the conversation by first asking you to introduce more about yourself and why you do what you do and a little bit about your journey.
Oh, well, thanks, Nathaniel. It's a pleasure to be here. You guys have a great little platform. I'm very grateful to be here.
Thank you.
It's pretty simple. It's like what you do, what you and Julia are doing. It's simple. It's to the point. Our game plan for those of us that are aware enough or quite awakened is to be of service.
Mhm.
It's pretty simple. It's like, you know, once you get the idea that there's no such thing as separation,
Mm.
you can close the gap and you can just sit out every day and do what you can to help as many people as you can. And that's really pretty much the simple thing that I do. I started out many years ago as a songwriter and recording artist,
Mm.
and I was performing and I had a very close call with huge success and so forth. But it was the same thing. I wanted to help people with music the way Bob Dylan and the Beatles helped me
Mm.
with life
Mm.
by listening to their songs. And
Yeah.
so I traded in my synthesizers and guitars for a computer and a cell phone. And so that's what I do on a daily basis is get out to help as many people as I can.
Mm.
Relieving human suffering is one of the main issues that all of us in this conversation, I believe, are very aware of.
Yeah. That's huge. And I love how you just bring it right down to the point. It's about being of service and recognizing our inherent interconnection. I've been obsessed with interconnection most of my life, and some of my own awakening just happened from like deeply contemplating and being in nature and looking at the synergy of nature and how everything is symbiotic in nature, and even just contemplating our body and how amazingly complex the intelligence of the body is, and how we're all literally like trillionaires walking around with trillions of cells that cooperate and communicate effectively. They grow us from a seed and egg, regenerate us. I mean, it's really an amazing thing. And what you talked about human suffering is really alleviating that because from my perspective, at least from the knowledge I have, it seems like that is actually what's causing the the sicknesses and the degenerations. So can you talk more about like your journey in regenerative health and what does that mean and what would you how would you simplify that for somebody?
Your original comment is probably the best one, which is deeply contemplating and being aware of who you are, and what you're doing,
Mhm.
which leads you pretty much to the most important question anyone can ask themselves is, what do you want?
Mhm.
We all are so inundated with external information from the internet, from the television, from the movies, from the magazines, from the social media, from our friends, from our family that have their own stories of origin. And so, we get clouded too easily with all kinds of information that, has been placed there. Talking about the kids,
Mhm.
when you're in the womb, until the time you're 7 years old, your brain is in theta wave, and that's like the dream state. So that's why a 6-year old walking around with a broom really believes it's a horse.
Mm, mm, mm,
So you don't have that frontal lobe development. And so your brain is just soaking up anything and everything that comes into it. And
mm,
unless and until you do what you were saying, which is take that deep contemplation. I mean, one of the things that I always love to talk with people about at Advanced BioCell, and they'll come in with a headache, or they can't go to the potty, or they can't sleep, or their libido's gone, or the energy levels in just about everyone are down. And, I always say, sure, we can fix that. We can help you with all those kinds of things. But let's start at the beginning. Why don't we just sit down and be quiet? Let's just sit down and be quiet for a minute. Silence and inactivity will give you a chance to recharge, and you'll be surprised what might come up for you to know about that has been clouded by all the activities and all the thinking.
mm.
So that's really where we start.
I think that's really genius, right? Because, in a lot of practitioners that I've experienced, a lot of it is, and I know they just have this revolving door of people coming with problems. And the paradigm shift that needs to happen for a lot of folks is to go within and start listening to that still place. I actually I was gifted from my beloved, from Julia, tickets to go listen to Eckhart Tolle, he came to the first time ever to Ottawa just on the full
Oh,
moon, the blue moon on the 31st. And it was such a poignant reminder of how important this work of awakening ourselves and our species really is, because the ego drive left unchecked, and that incessant wheel that is so fixated on there's something wrong, and there's probably it creates this barrier to our healing, is my understanding. And I feel like the best health practitioners are aware of this innate life force that wants to heal us, wants to regenerate us. But if we won't take a pause and be in stillness and just allow it, and just constantly running towards that future that you never arrive to, then we're really doing a disservice to our own healing journey. So I feel like there's so much wisdom in that. Thank you for sharing that, Bill. I've never heard of a practitioner starting from that point.
well, thank you, thank you. It's all true. I mean, I've had the great privilege of studying with some of the finest minds in the world for many, many years, and so I'm standing on the shoulders of giants that
Mm,
have been talking about these things for forever, really forever. And it's the interferences. It's
mhm.
the interferences that cause trouble all the time. And let's talk about the kids for a minute, because that's
Yeah,
really
please.
kind of like your community and the
Yeah.
kids truly in the end are my constituency, really. We work with
Okay.
the adults because the adults make the phone calls.
Mm,
But any chance I can. When my kids were growing up, I used to get the teachers in third grade, second, third grade, and on to let me have the class for teaching them two songs for the Christmas show.
mm,
As a songwriter and performer, I knew how to do that, and I knew how to create two songs, teach them two songs. One that would be a goofy, funny song that would get them outright prolonged laughter and applause, and the other very poignant, get everybody a little teary and heartfelt
mm,
in the moment. So they always said yes, sure. So I would come in, and for me, what I wanted to do was teach the kids how to meditate.
mm,
Now, I used the songs as a decoy, and it was always great and always fun. But so I'd come in on the first day of class, and I'd say, okay, so here we're going to start today, and we're going to have everybody sit very quietly, very still in their chair, and nobody can move anything. I'm going to play some music, but you have to sit very still and very quiet. And if anybody even moves a finger, you have to get up next to your chair and dance. So the first day, of course, it was like 10 seconds, and then one, and then everybody was dancing in 10 seconds. So it went by, I would come in like a couple times a week for the 2 months before the Christmas show. And by the third week, we were getting up to like 30, 40 seconds.
Mm,
And then into the second month, we were making it all the way to a minute. And
mm,
even some of the kids would come up and say, Mr. Quaitman, can we sit still today?
yeah,
Now, for me, that was a big win. That was a
yeah,
real big pleasure for me.
yeah,
So that really has so much to do with so much of what all of us need to address and have that inner view, you
yeah.
might say, so that we can find out what's going on and why it's going on and how it got to be going on
Mm,
so we can make some informed choices, whether it's for our health, what food you eat, what food you don't eat, what vitamins you take, what treatments you might have, or how you talk to people. So that's really kind of like an important starting point is to remove the interferences
mm,
so that your body can do what it's supposed to do, which is to heal you, whether it's mentally, emotionally, physically, or spiritually, really.
yeah. Well, I really appreciate your presence, Bill, and I could see your role in those classrooms is just so pivotal. And I love that you came from a background of creativity into medicine. I think there's really an important bridge happening in our times where that bridge between science and spirituality is meeting. And I feel like music is just one of those things that brings everyone together. And we're starting to awaken as a species to like the dimensions of ourselves in a lot more ways. And so my background is in indigenous medicine, as I mentioned, but it was actually a direct experience with Christ that led me to that. And I wouldn't even describe myself as religious in that context because I grew up in a very secular home, and he appeared to me in the forest as a being of pure light. And even to this day, I question a lot of my journey because I feel like it's been, I've had this very out of the box experience, but I was guided while serving Indigenous seniors, and that's kind of where my lens came in. I loved being with the seniors because their childlike nature. I mean, the first time I brought them to a camp, I was a month into the role, and I was really nervous because I had like about 40 Indigenous seniors, all with different capacity challenges, from everything from like dementia to blindness, deafness, diabetes, residential school survivors, you name it. I'm there on the bus, and the children had invited them to their camp for the summer. And I got everyone off the bus, and I'm all like, okay, everyone get by the fire. And the director of HR had me all nervous. She's like, gotta get everyone sign a waiver. It's really unstable ground. Like, make sure everyone is safe. And so I was already nervous. Get everyone by the fire. Okay, I'm like, okay, I can breathe. With not even within 5 minutes, one of the Cree elders beelines it for the forest, and I could tell she grew up in the trap line. She's like, she just competently walking through the forest and stuff. So I go after her. I'm like, like, can you please just come by the fire? Finally convinced her, right? And as we're coming around the corner, one of the seniors is up a tree with her shoes off, posing like a model, and then the other senior who's deaf, he's always taking photos of everyone. He's taking photos. So I like ran up there, I got her off the tree, and and then there's this lineup of seniors wanting to go up the tree. And I said, no one is going up the tree. And they're all laughing at me, of course, right? And then the camp counselor comes to me like a few minutes after this. We're all back by the fire. He says, Nathaniel, the children have been here all week, and not one of them has climbed a tree. And I said, you gotta be kidding me. I bring the seniors there for 5 minutes. But I think what I'm pointing out is this like innate childlike sense of that importance of connection. And I can feel from your presence how well you can connect with people. And when I think of that going to stillness and silence, and why I brought up Christ is because it was serving the seniors that I found Christ's letters, and he actually talks about how he became truly spiritual enlightened, and then he rejects a lot of the dogma that was put on his persona in the letters. So they have an edge to them, but he talks about stillness and silence as the equilibrium where our creator lives, right? And so when I'm picturing those children as I was listening to you sitting there connecting to that, they're really connecting to where they're from, right? Their home. And so I see, at least from my perspective, how important your mission is to connect children into meditation from an early age, because meditation has been a game changer for me. I think ADHD would have wiped me a long time. I still struggle with, staying focused and stuff, but I meditate like every day. To me, that's my groundedness part of me.
Yeah, and what you say is so true. So much of what we will be called upon to do is to take the great teachings from so many wonderful avatars.
Yeah.
Christ consciousness is one of the most beautiful pieces, and take it to heart and realize that our bodies were made are simply and plainly miracles made to heal us if we simply get out of the way and stop interfering with that process. And that's really the work at hand, really.
Mm.
Any spiritual information at all will tell you, okay, let's identify the blockages and ask them to be removed.
Mm. You know what? The reason Lightheart Vision is called Lightheart Vision is our daughter's name means light, and it was a natural home birth that we had. So I had the opportunity of catching her, and
Wow.
I'd been talking for years about how we were walking miracles, so really echoing the language you're using. But then the actual visceral experience of new life emerging and me catching her, and her, because there was no blockages for her in this experience. There was no painkillers of any kind. Julia was very prepared, a lot of meditation, a lot of preparation for it. And Luciana was born so present. Like she looked in my eyes so deeply, and I felt like, oh, that's what you look like. And then she turned her head and looked at. She knew exactly where Julia was in the room, and just her level of presence. I was like, oh my God, like it was such a visceral feeling of the miraculous. And
Yeah.
of course, it's my daughter, and of course, it's amazing and miraculous. But I contemplated that so much, and it's really at the heart of everything we're doing with Lightheart Vision because I realize we all come from that in whatever form it is, and we've normalized the miraculous. And I feel like that's one of the blockages that we need to the beliefs that need to be healed. One of those blockages, Bill. So, what is can you walk me through like some of the transformational journeys that you've seen people go through in doing this work of connecting to who they really are and how transformative that is?
Oh, sure, sure. The idea, I think, more than anything, is to really come to a real realization of who are you? Who in the world are you? And I have kind of a fun thing that I do. People will always walk around and say, "Well, hey, how are you?" And everybody says, "Oh, I'm great. How you doing?" Okay. People, what I answer, people say, "How you doing?" I say, "I'm amazing." And they always like there's a pause, like, "Oh, really? That's great. I aspire to amazing, or I'd like to be amazing, or I'm working on being." I say, when it's appropriate, I say, well, let's just take a moment here, and so let's think about this in pause. So we are on a rock in the middle of infinity, spinning around and going at godly speeds to who knows where. And the chances of being a human being on that rock are like 40 million to one. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. It truly is. It is amazing. And even that concept, of being a part of eternity, being a part of infinity. I mean, it's difficult for the limited mind to see that, but in becoming just open to that awareness of how interconnected we are and how little we actually know from the human vantage point of all this, but the wonders of the heavens that we can see is just even just in your backyard. If you take time and like now, right now is springtime in the northern hemisphere, right? Like just looking at the little flowers and things emerging, like there's so much intricate, intelligent, loving expressions everywhere. It's unbelievable. And it's interesting, Bill, because in following the inspiration to co-create these coherence circles that I was mentioning to you before the call, there's been a lot of buzz in the community platforms that I'm in, especially on school, like talking about a trust recession. I think a lot of people, especially during the lockdowns and everything, a lot of people had excess time and money and invested in things and basically, got robbed or were given these fire hose good luck programs that really didn't bring them to who they were. In fact, it just sold them on problems and then just upsold more and more problems. And it feels like that's a theme in entrepreneurship. It's focused on the problems, sell the solution. And I was doing this, you know, having this conversation with creator and also doing my own and looking at all the pain points that people have, whether it's feeling like we're isolated or feeling like we're confused, not knowing what to do, and also this trust recession and some other things. And what you said is it's the exact the deep root of all of this is that we have a soul identity or who we really are. We're disconnected from that. And that really solves all of the problems. So true spiritual enlightenment, I do feel, is the answer to all of our problems. And it's not this confusing effect, like, woo-woo thing. It's just a practical path that we take on to return home, as my perspective. And it's been the gradual journey for me anyways. Can you talk about what that means to you in terms of what it means to see yourself in that way and to awaken to who you really are?
Absolutely. We can take it from scripture, which is, the quality, the childlike quality that all of us tend to bury one way or another,
Yeah.
knowingly or unknowingly.
Mhm.
Plenty of stuff happens and we don't like it and we push it down and we think it's going to go away, but it won't go away because it keeps popping up because you shoved it down. And
Mhm.
something will come about and trigger it and it'll come back up. So the point of the story really gets to be to, again, do the investigation because, like,
Mhm.
um, all of those bits and pieces are required for you to find your way through the maze. Then
Mhm.
that's really what we're doing here is, we all came in with this beautiful angelic reality, and then it got covered up. So the idea is, as you understand it, is to find your way to uncover that beautiful angelic reality.
Mhm.
I had the great privilege of a 32-year tutorial with a psychiatry professor from Northwestern University in Chicago. And one day we were talking, and he said, what you really want to do is just allow yourself to get to a place where you're walking around in awestruck gratitude. Well, that just takes some clearing out of stuff that's blocking that because
Yeah.
it's there. It's like
Yeah.
you can't, people say, I want more love in my life. And my response to that is, well, you can't have any more love in your life because all the love there is already there. You just don't see it or you don't feel it. And
Yeah.
that's where the work is to find out, why don't you feel that?
Yeah.
Why don't you experience that? Why aren't you connected like that?
Yeah.
That's it's actually something that will free you up once you find that out.
I I I I love your depth and simplicity, Bill. I feel like that's truly the mark of a deeply reflected journey. It's not always able. It's not always easy to arrive at some of those um, realizations because there is so much noise out there, and there's so much. I would say investment in garnering the ego attention and getting our attention, putting us into fear. And we know that when the body's stressed and we're in fear, we can't. But that, to me, that realization of being awestruck and gratitude is at the heart of every master's teaching. And because the reality is that love is the foundation of all of this. It's what and who we originate from, and even just in a really practical way. I mean, you can look at it scientifically. I mean, you can look at it dogmatically, materialistically, which is not scientifically, I would say. And you can look at it in bypassing ways. But at the heart of it, we all know the experience, and we know that babies don't survive who don't receive it, right?
Oh,
And
well, there is nothing other than love. Anything besides love is a mistake. Anything you think that is happening besides love is a mistake. That's what happens. You've seen it with so many people that I'm sure listening to your wonderful program have seen it. A newborn baby. I just saw it with my first grandchild. My daughter is loving this baby and breastfeeding this baby, and in 3 weeks he turned into a fat boy. He turned into a little Buddha. That's what happens. They blow up. because you're hugging them and you're loving them and you're holding them and you're cooing them and you're breastfeeding them and you're changing them, and that's key. You want to be able to recognize that you want to be doing that to yourself
Mm-hmm.
so that you can do it for other people.
Yeah. Yeah. Why do you think it is such a challenge for so many human beings? I feel like other species, like, I don't know if you've ever heard God's course.
Animals, you mean?
Yeah, like, well, there's this recording God's course of crickets where they slow down the length of time to match a cricket's lifetime to match it to a human, and you can hear just the chorus and the harmonies, and I feel like I hear it in the songbirds every morning. There's this rejoicing in creation, and yet if we really attune to the the sounds that a lot of humans are making, there isn't coherence, there's some disharmonies there, talking from a musical lens, and there's a lot of complaining and things that are, I would say, evidence that they're not doing that loving embrace of themselves. Why is it so challenging I mean, I've talked to some of the most loving people, and they have that challenge with loving themselves. What do you think that's about, Bill?
I think it's about a couple of things. One, it's about old stories,
Mhm.
stories of origin that are playing around in the background, like, programs that you don't even perhaps realize are up on the screen, for one, that you haven't let go of, that you don't realize are there, or you do know that they're there and you don't want to do anything about it. And the other part then gets to be, I think, really a lack of imagination.
Mhm.
If you imagine that you're stuck, if you imagine or you think or you feel or you believe, and a belief is just investing in an old story that, and most people have this problem: I'm not enough.
Mhm.
I'm not pretty enough. I'm not skinny enough. I'm not rich enough. I'm not loved enough. Whatever enough means to you,
Mhm.
where did that come from? Why are you still carrying that around? How about saying this? I choose to let go of what no longer serves me.
Mhm.
Just a simple shift in your inner conversation can be such a big deal. But until you can get to that point where, like you said earlier, you're doing the investigation to say, well, what's going on? You're really kind of holding back your imagination. You're thinking, okay, well, this is it. This is the life. I got problems. I need a counselor. Okay, well, get one that helps you stop doing that.
Mhm. Y- You know, that enough question is so interesting to me, and I hear it in subtler ways, and very, I mean, Wayne Dyer talked about this, right? The memes, right? People think memes are the images that they see on the internet that are jokes, but memes are really mind viruses that we pass to one another, right? It's those thoughts that go unchecked and then go into our psyche or subconscious, and we start repeating them, and then they just become part of our beliefs, right? And I remember being a little boy, Bill, and looking at the grown-ups around me, and I was a total wonderment. And somehow I managed to hold the tether to that for my life. And I would look around and just be like, oh, they're playing a game. Like they forgot. They forgot about the miraculous. They forgot about using their imagination and the joy that's inherently available to them. And, I feel like, a part of me yearned to like shake them out of it. And I think that's been like part of the goad and a lot of my journey to just help people remember that they have access to more expansive imagination, that we can create this game however we want to be, and the meaning we're giving it is really up to us. And I also, it comes like we talked a little bit about entrepreneurism. I notice this in like corporate environments, hierarchical environments where people wear stress like a badge, like, oh, you don't know stress. And it's like this thing of pride and identification with their title, their role. And what I wanted to say is that there's this simplicity to all of this conversation, like that it is simply about choosing that love, right? It's really just about opening and realizing. And I love how Don Miguel Ruiz talked about it in The Voice of Knowledge. He said, we actually are perfect. the truth, and we go around, this is the subtle belief, well, I'm not perfect, so I did this. It's like, well, how do you know? How are you so sure that you're imperfect? Right. And that easily leads you into the not enough thing. Because I feel like we all want to be who and what we really are. And that is perfection. I feel like the soul is perfection. Yeah.
Uh, my comment on that is one of my favorites, which is we're all born perfect with infinite room for improvement.
I'm definitely going to use that one, Bill.
It's
I love
yours.
that.
It's
That's
yours. Spread
great.
it around. Spread it around.
That is extraordinary. That is my high point of today.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, it's the same thing. It's, people say, well, um, like you said, um, we can do whatever we want. But, well, that's really, I think, God's joke.
Mm,
God's joke is free will.
mm.
You not only can do whatever you want, guess what? You are doing whatever you want. And people say, well, I don't want this, I don't want that. Well, yeah, you do, because you got it. What do you think's going on here? How do you think that happened? Somebody else did it? No, it's you.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think it's the fish in the ocean, like the omnipresence, that the fact that it's so in front of our face all the time that it's hard to see?
Absolutely. I think my beloved teacher said the one thing human beings are best at is forgetting.
Hmm, hmm,
We forget the miraculous nature of simply breathing. We forget the miraculous concept. Just think about it. The human heart. I mean, I get excited about these things just like you
yeah,
do,
me too.
Nathaniel. And so,
Yeah.
like, put your mind on your heart for a minute. Put your energy on your heart for a minute. Think about how incredible that is, what's going on with your heart. And then you connect that to your brain, the human heart and the human brain, then that leads us right back to where we talk to people about their health and wellness. It's what I refer to as the heart and the art of medicine.
Hmm, hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So much depth there. And, there's so many conversations and knowledge that we're gaining about heart mind coherence. I mean, a lot of the elders that I've sat in circle with, they talk about the red road, that journey between the head and the heart's the longest journey. And yet, like you're reminding us, it's what is now. It is what is, and it's not something to get to. It's just something to remember. Um, there's a famous poet in Canada, the Tragically Hip. He's known internationally too, but he always has this line I like to bring up in conversation with people because he always had, deep meaning in his expression, his poetic expression. It was, "Is life just forgetting?" It really is that play on words about, our focus, right, on consumption, acquisition, and possession, which is an interesting word, and then, you know, it, you know, the juxtaposition of remembering or forgiving and forgetting are really interesting, right? Because there's a talk about, of generosity in that too, and I feel like the more we the more we express like our source, it's just this totally generous nature without any attachment. It's just like, when you talk about free will, I think of like how the sun, it radiates its light in all directions at all times. It's what gives that life force for planets to come in through their evolutionary expression. And it doesn't dictate, it doesn't try to control. And I feel like for our society to evolve, we need to go somewhat in that direction, at least not at least maybe even completely in that direction. What do you see in terms of the evolution of our species? We're in such an interesting time with so many emergent technologies, and we're more interconnected than ever, and yet there's more hunger for the connection and things in what I hear from others. What do you see, Bill?
To take your phrase and use it, I think life is for giving. And as we can get to that place for giving yourself what you need, forgiving yourself for what you've done. Forgiving is really the issue. And however you get there, sooner than later is better. Never too late, just get started. And that's the idea. But I think that conversations like yours and this terrific show that you have, and having chats like this with really excellent people, I'm sure that you've had on your show, and
Yeah, totally.
people that listen to you and resonate with what you're saying and spreading it around. I mean, the hundredth monkey theory. You've heard about the hundredth monkey theory. 99 monkeys know something, and then some monkey on the other side of the world will do the same thing.
Yeah.
It's that level of energy. I mean, we are all energy. We are all
Mhm.
vibrations, and paying more attention to the subtleties of being alive. I mean, when my son was born, I just thought, oh my God, well, that's a good thing to think. And then after that, I thought he's going to do all the crazy stuff I've ever done. What am I going to do now? So I was talking to my teacher, and he says, well, there's just two things you want to think of. One is you want to give him a safe place to come home to.
Mhm.
And then you want to make him feel safe.
Mhm.
So I said, okay, I can understand a safe place to come home to. How do you make him feel safe? And in his usual infinite pithy way, he said, well, I don't know. It's kind of like how you close the refrigerator door.
Mhm.
So, like, if you're having a steamy conversation with your wife or somebody and you slam the refrigerator door,
Mhm.
that's going to make somebody feel scared.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, if you take it from something as simple as a refrigerator door and walk it back, so, okay, so that means once again, you got to come back to yourself. Okay, so what's bothering me? How can I resolve it and be a benefit rather than being stressed out?
Yeah. Yeah. That calmness, that peace, I feel that comes from practice of going into the stillness and allowing ourselves to reconnect is so valuable, especially in such a. I mean, there's a lot of noise in this world. I've always been highly sensitive energetically, and sound is one of those things. And I notice it in my daughter too. She hears the vibrations in the house, and she says, "Who's that? Who's that?" And she's playing, right? She's in this new phase where it's like we're playing hide and seek a lot. We've always played it, but now she's more interested in she's hiding better, and I feel like that's so one of the things that Christ mentions in the letters how everything is consciousness, as you were mentioning too, and I think about that in terms of the qualities of our environments, the qualities of the sounds that we're exposing to, the smells, and our harmonious relationships with one another, and especially through our technology, I feel like is a big one because that seems to be the byproduct of human beings as we create technology. And a lot of people think technology is our widgets, our gadgets. But really, the technology is the principles behind the skill and the craft and the art. And that's really deep, right? And I feel like a lot of the technology that we're currently witnessing um, is just the vibration is loud and it's smelly and it's not necessarily in harmony with the environment. And because of that, free will, of course, we can experience all this. And yet, I feel like we're at the cusp of this whole new period of time where we are remembering that we can have and co-create some really harmonious and luxuriant technologies that we all can benefit from. So I'd like to know more about what that means in terms of your work with BioCell and regenerative health, and what are you seeing emerge in your field, Bill?
Well, it's really very much in the subtle nature, because in our conversations about human health and wellness, um, the health of the human body is based on the health of the human cell.
Mm,
That's like, as small an item as you can kind of talk about and influence, really, aside from your thinking and other things that don't have physical form. But the idea that we bring to people is what we call peak span. Now,
Mm,
everybody's talking about lifespan and health span and biohacking and age reversal and life extension and life reversal and so forth, which is good. It's a good starting point. What we're talking with people about is what we call peak span, meaning how long can you live your best life
mm,
in fully functional form, where you're thinking straight and you're having good sexual activity and good energy and good recovery and things are working out well. That's the point. And so that brings us to a really very subtle nature. Your cells in your body, I mean, you look like you got a body. You look like a form. You look in the mirror and you see your face and your body and your muscles and your structure, and that's good and it's true. At the same time, really, we're about, everybody's about basically a sack of 36 trillion cells. So what is the status of those cells? And those cells talk to each other
mm,
unless they're interfered with,
mhm,
which they mostly are.
mm,
And your health is taking care of you unless those cells are interfered with, which they usually are. So let's talk about how to make those cells healthier.
mm,
And certainly it has to do with diet, and certainly it has to do with nutrition, and certainly has to do with lifestyle choices. And those three big areas break down into the 10,000 things. And we can talk about ozone therapy, we can talk about stem cells, we can talk about mitochondria, we can talk about all kinds of things that pertain to that. It's all a very simple conversation about what are you willing to do to make the subtle shifts at any level, whether it's the
mm,
cellular level or the emotional level or the spiritual level or the psychological level, to help yourself have a better experience of being alive.
mm. And that comes back to what you were saying earlier is about really loving yourself in and having the awareness of the infinite love that we have access to, right?
Really, yeah, I don't want to get too far off into the clouds here, but it has to do with love and acceptance of the miracle that you are.
Hmm.
And, Big Macs taste great. Let's not let's not mince words here, but all kinds of stuff tastes good. What I used to say to my kids about sugar is the biggest problem with sugar is it tastes so good.
Yeah,
So
totally.
let's just be real. Let's
Yeah.
be real. That might taste good, and you got to have some fun every once in a while. I love a good piece of chocolate, but the key to the thing is, again, square one. What do you want?
Yeah.
So why do you want it? And then what are you willing to do to get it?
Hmm.
And that's where all things, meet in the middle. It's like, are you here to give something to yourself, or are you here to get something for yourself?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that's where we've been talking all morning.
Yeah. Wow. That's really profound. Also, I'm thinking about families out there who are, even my own family, we don't really feel like the culture in North America and Canada where we are is really in harmony with the lifestyle that we would like. So like, we've been talking about different areas of the world that we would rather be different climates and different access to cleaner food sources because we know a lot of the experimentation, glyphosates and all that, all those conversations that are happening here in North America. What what are some tips that you might have for families really wanting to dial in and to make those important shifts towards maximizing their peak health, Bill?
Sure. It's very basic. It's really very basic. The three most important factors for a length of life are proper nutrition, good exercise, and good quality sleep.
Mm, mm,
It's just not more complicated than that. Now, of course, how you get to those things has to do with what you know about what you're doing and what you would change based on what kind of results you're getting. You know, it's really pretty simple. Don't eat anything out of a bag or a box. You know, eat, eat,
Yeah.
eat whole foods, drink purified water. Um, get 7 hugs a day,
Mm,
touch your bare feet to the grass or the dirt or the concrete,
mm,
get a little sunlight during the middle of the day, 20 minutes of sunlight. Um, Make sure you're laughing as much as possible. Um, you know, tell people the words they need to hear. Tell them to yourself.
mm, mm,
Shut off the screens. If you could do it at 8 o'clock at night, that's best. If you could do it at 9, that's okay. Um, there's some really very simple, basic things. And of course, sitting still and being quiet is at the
mm,
core of it all. And it does take attention to detail. It
mm,
does take some planning. It does take decision making based on what's your result? What kind of result do you want? Again, it's what do you want? What do
yeah.
you want? Do you want to live a long, healthy, joyful, active life?
Mm,
Do you want to live fast and die young? I mean, whatever you want is whatever you're going to get.
mm,
And especially what happens is people say, well, I don't want that. Well, that's what you're getting. You're getting what you don't want because that's what you're focusing on.
yeah.
So, one thing, of course, would be to say, find out what you're focusing on. Most people are focusing on what they don't have and what they don't want.
Hmm.
When in fact, what you want to do is focus on what you do have and what you do want.
So such a simple shift, and it can be amazingly, like the fish in the sea, can be amazingly deceptive sometimes to catch yourself in those patterns that can be, deep rooted. And so, and so much of what you said, I feel is that common sense appreciation of just being a vital, active, connected to their environment human being. And um, and there's so much simplicity in it, and I feel like it's freeing in that way as well, right, Bill, to just be in those environments. Luciano was born on Vancouver Island, and we came back to Ontario to be closer to family. And it's not that I have regrets, but I mean, we went and spent so much time in the rivers, and on hiking and trails and the mountains and all these things, and we long for that again as a family, and fresh fruits on trees. I find it very bizarre that humankind has kind of alienated itself from its own environment in such a way. And I also realize that as the soul intends its own challenges to overcome, that our society, our species has taken on this challenge to come, I feel, to another level of its expression and remembrance. And I feel like we're a lot of what we're told about ourselves as humans from like a materialistic, dogmatic lens, a modern lens, I feel is it's very negative. And I feel like the truth is what we've been talking about this whole time is like we are the embodiment of miracles. What we're capable of is truly extraordinary. And I really see the beauty in our species as human beings interconnected with all these beautiful amazing creatures on this planet. When we are in alignment with that stewardship, which really is a role of generosity, of caretaking, of giving, it's a giving role. I feel like we'll flourish so much more in alignment with our health. And I even after reading the letters and everything and realizing truly what we're capable of on a spiritual level, I feel like it's something that we can't even imagine yet as a society. How do you feel like we can most effectively um, move towards that? Is it just about being it, or what's like you're obviously an educator, you're helping people directly, you're being of service. What would you say to someone who is maybe still seeking or not knowing how what they're supposed to do to be of service in the best way? What's your best take on
One thing would be shut off the TV.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Stop watching the news. Um, Stop complaining.
Mhm.
Joe Dispenza is one of the great conversations going on right now, and I've been to a couple of his workshops, and he was
Okay.
telling a story. that a woman came up to him at one of his workshops and said, Dr. Joe, I tried doing this meditation stuff and I really, he said, no, 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 wait a minute, wait a minute. She says, no, I got to tell you, I tried doing this meditation stuff you're talking about and I just can't seem to. He says, wait a minute, wait a minute. She says, no, 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 wait. I got to tell you, I've been trying to do this meditation stuff and sitting still and doing all this stuff. He says, wait, why don't you just start by stop complaining? So again, the biggest step anybody could take for self-healing and personal best is mindset. And so we keep coming around to the same place, which is, what are you thinking? Take notice of what you're thinking. You started this whole conversation by your own description of self-investigation, observation, discovery. That's what comes up. And sometimes, well, most of the time, when you look at yourself and you get these inquiries answered, it's just not comfortable. It's not pretty. It's not fun. It doesn't feel good.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we call detox.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to take out the garbage that's causing trouble in your body. And sometimes you get a headache, and sometimes you feel fatigued, and sometimes you feel nauseous. And it goes away because you're getting stuff out. Like what we say is better out than in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it has to do with every level that you want to talk about, whether it's nutrition or whether it's ideas or whether it's toxins or whether it's pollutants. Those are all the bits and pieces we all want to attend to. So, take a look at what's going on and sit with it for a moment. Nobody's done anything to you that you can't undo. If you let it go, if you recognize that it no longer serves you, if you're going to fight it, if you're going to be angry about it, it's just going to stick around.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate you bringing up Dr. Joe Dispenza. He also has been an interesting player in terms of my. I haven't gone to any of his workshops. I've met some people that have, and I remember reading his book. I believe it was Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, and I noticed a line in there that really caused me to pause. And it was like, I like to think of our Creator as a divine, loving intelligence. There was a little asterisk. So I looked at the footnotes, and he actually was referencing Christ letters in a published version of um, that was called Christ Returns Reveal Startling Truth. And it was republished in North America, and they're very hard to find, these letters. Bill, I know I've brought them up a few times, but in them, they're letters, right? They're like a direct transmission. So I found it really interesting. And then when I read Becoming Supernatural, and he talks about his past life experience of basically being, I think, upside down, crucified. I was like, oh, interesting. I feel like Joe was probably one of the disciples, and I actually, my first meditation experience doing Vipassana experience, I think it was like day 5 or 6. Several of my energy centers opened, and I had profound remembrance of being in the crowd and witnessing the crucifixion of my brother. And then upon meeting Julia, I had more remembrances of that time and realizing I was one of his sisters in that life. And that's part of the mission we're continuing on with Light Art Vision. And I would love to have a conversation with Joe sometime, because I feel like I've even connected on with him on other levels. And part of the conversation that I'm interested in with like the synthesis of indigenous wellness, and science, Christ consciousness, I feel like not only do we have our own personal things that need to get out, we have our collective things that need to get out. And some of the avatars and the stories that have been told of some of these avatars are not true, and have been very wounding to other civilizations. Like I think of many of the, those seniors that I took care of that were taken out of their homes and put into, religious institutions and told their cultures were wrong and stuff. And I feel like we're at this really important threshold of awakening, and there's this call to be truthful and honest And there also is this a decision to make, right? Like it's easy to not turn off the TV. Way easier. When I was a child, it was easy to turn off the TV because there was three channels and there was nothing on. It was like drama shows, like soap operas and stuff, like stuff, the most boring stuff ever. I mean, it just makes you feel like, anyway, it's weird. But now it's so available to just stream, as they're calling it, stream for like ever. And I feel like a lot of people are, you know, and I don't want to focus on that. What I want to focus on is the transcendence of that. For some of these leaders that you're talking about, these important figures, how do you see them coming together and working together? Because I feel like there's a lot of isolation in a lot of the work that we do, and people can float around and take their injury, or their questions from one thing to another, and never really get traction. What do you what do you see? Anyways, I guess I don't even know what my question is.
Yeah. Well, I think, throughout history, part of the problem with the messages from the great avatars is that they had a conversation. The thing was taken up by other people, translated by other. It's like telephone, by the there was nothing, there was no printing. There was just he said this and he said that, and then the languages were different. So by the time it got around, it was probably a whole probably a whole different story. The Bible was what, 200, 300 years in the making. So now the truths of being here are still the same. There's still the miracle of being alive,
Mhm.
and the different messages that come from the different teachers still have the same essential nature, which is, there's only love, give love. There's a part of the brain that can't tell the difference when you give something to someone,
Mm.
if you gave it to someone else or you gave it to yourself.
Mm. Interesting.
This is a beautiful thing to know,
Wow, I did not know
so
that.
that
That's
it
interesting. What
opens
part of
up
the
your
brain is
ability.
that, Bill?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't
Okay.
remember. I read it just a while ago. I think I was talking with Michael Beckwith about it,
Okay.
but yeah, it's one of those things where it just points more than anything to the dramatic subtlety
Mm.
of being alive, and coming to grace and gratitude for
Yeah.
that simple thing is a really good starting point. It's
Mm.
just a really good starting point to wake up, and the first thing you think about is how grateful you are to be here. The last thing you think about when you go to bed at night is how grateful you are for what you had in the day that you had, so that you can be like any really good living creature, mostly dogs, and just be in the present moment, just like Eckhart, I'm sure, was talking about
Yeah.
endlessly.
Yeah.
And that's where we all find ourselves in trouble. We are worried about the past, we're concerned
Mhm.
about the future,
Mm.
we're on the email, we're on the phone call, we're on the text, and the streaming. I mean, have a good time. There's some great movies out there, and it's all an important thing to enjoy yourself
Mhm.
one way and another.
Mhm.
And the main part of it gets to be is to, I think, be grateful for the miracle that you are.
Yeah. Yeah. I really appreciate your kind and profound uh, reminding of that. Bring back to the generous present moment, as Dr. Joe talks about. And also, I appreciate you bringing up Michael Bernard Beckwith, because one thing he said has been this, like, deep contemplation for me for a long time. And he said, we've established such a profound network of the mind around the world, and we're all connected, we're plugged in, we're having a instantaneous conversation thousands of miles apart. It's pretty miraculous, the technology that we've created. Like, it's an amazing, there's so many things to be grateful for. Kings and queens didn't have this 100 years ago, and we all have it now, and there's still a lot of complaining, maybe. Who knows? But one of the things he said is that, what we're missing is a global heart work. And that really is the essence of Light Heart Vision. We're doing our best to build conscious bridges between individuals like yourself, through the Love Pod, through other community builders. And I had a vision when I was in college. I've had a few miraculous encounters in my life, and I think about them a lot. And one of them was I was describing these community centers. I had a vision of this when I was studying from Anishinaabe elder. And it was for my first time being around circles, you know. And what I love about indigenous circles is the elder sits in the circle with you. There's no podium at the top where he's, you know, proclaiming anything. And there's always something that represents the creator at the center. And for this classroom, it was a drum with a big eagle staff. And most of my time in that college experience was just being around the drum, listening to others, because you spend most of your time listening. And I found my mind would always, like when the talking stick would go around, be like, initially it was like, okay, what am I going to say? What am I going to... And then I just found it was this practice, just be and listen. And this, you know, understanding that the circle takes care of what it needs to take care of. And then being exposed to all kinds of ceremonies. But to me, you know, that heartbeat that represented in that drum to me is a reminder of that connection we have with our mother and with Mother Earth. There's that pulse in this eternal now, and hearing him talk about that heart work and that creating that global heart connection. I talk about it a lot. So if you ever are talking with him again, please extend my gratitude. I would love to thank him directly one day. Um,
I absolutely will. Reverend Michael is one of my dearest friends.
oh,
He
really?
comes in all
Wonderful.
the time for some ozone and good stuff that goes on, and I'm privileged to have such a wonderful human being as a friendship. And then that's where these leaders, these beautiful spirits, come together. Whether it's Reverend Michael, whether it's Joe Dispenza, or Greg Braden, or Bruce Lipton, they're all really bringing the conversation really into the heart space,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's where the whole universe, I think, emanates from.
Mhm.
We just forget.
Yeah, so true. And it's interesting, the heart, we often describe it as a pump, but it's the lungs that are the pump, and the heart is really a valve, right? It's a door. It's a door. And I don't know about you, Bill, but sometimes I just spend time in that space and there's like infinite depth. I feel like the more that we can relax into it and be just be with it, and that heartbeat that's there ever presently, when we can really listen to it and hear all the reflections it has inside ourselves, it's every one of them is unique. It's never the same heartbeat, which I find is really fascinating. Can you talk more about, sorry, do you want to talk about that? I was going to ask you about ozone.
No, go whatever you like, whatever you like.
Yeah, well, I love your reflection on that. And I'm also wondering about, you know, you talk about ozone therapy. I've heard how beneficial this can be, and definitely becoming oxygenated and becoming like, you know, finding that chemistry, that optimal chemistry to achieve what you're talking about, the peak health in the cell. Can you talk more about the importance of that, and yeah, like how can people access that kind of thing?
The ozone.
Yeah,
Sure.
or yeah, whatever you'd like to share.
All right, great. Let's start. What is health? Health is energy.
Mm,
That's pretty basically and simply what it is. When you're sick, when you're ill, when you have a disease or something, your energy levels are not good.
mm,
The worst energy levels would be on your deathbed. You're just sitting there like a blob. So where does the energy come from? The energy comes from your miracle body's ability to make that energy.
mm,
That energy is made with oxygen because, little science here, the mitochondria, which are the little battery packs in every cell in your body, are where that energy is made. And those mitochondria need oxygen, which is what ozone is. Ozone is oxygen. It's called active oxygen. So when you flood your body with active oxygen, you give those mitochondria a boost to make that energy that your body needs for the organs, the cells, the glands, the bones, the systems. Your most important system in the world today is your immune system
mm,
because of all the stuff that's circulating around. And we're constantly in an exchange with what we take in and what we put out, take in and put out, take in and put out. And so that is really the essence. Ozone therapy is the closest thing we have to a panacea, meaning it
mm,
will handle such a broad scope of
Mm.
issues, whether it's bacterias or mold or fungus or bugs or infections or stopping viruses from replicating and enhancing your most important hormone capabilities and giving your gut health a good boost. And so the point of the
Mm.
story gets to be, again, what attention are you paying to what details? What we're talking about now is, again, the science of being well and
Mhm.
feeling good. And those are the pieces that really matter for ongoing sustained health and wellness. Certainly, what all these pieces do when you put them together is who you are and how you feel.
Mm. I really appreciate your gift at communicating such complex things that I feel like a lot of people can get confused on their health journey because there's a lot of divergent voices, but you really have an ability to really hone in onto the most essential levels, Bill, and to make it to articulate in such a clear and deep way. So I appreciate that. I know that comes from years and years of presence and building that level
Thank you.
of
Thank
presence.
you.
So.
Yeah, it comes from making a lot of stupid mistakes.
And the humility, eh? Yeah, yeah. I love that and all the time I spend around elders, there's that as much depth as there is, there's always that playful laughter. And to bring it back, full circle to what you were talking about with the music and the children, because that's really at the heart of, what we're about too. It's and seeing ourselves as those children. I like to think of us as like trees. Like we have these layers still within us. Like I remember during the lockdowns, my parents were very afraid, and so for the first Christmas of my whole life, I was totally by myself, and I walked up and down the airport parkway here in Ottawa, and I was just paying attention to people and listening and feeling what I was feeling. And this song emerged, and I had just done a Tony Robbins Date with Destiny that my friend invited me. It was the first ever Date with Destiny online, and it was a profound
Great.
experience for me because it was. It was a deep dive into these inner technologies and the values and beliefs and all this in a way that complemented a lot of my own direct spiritual experiences. But there was one particular meditation where we were guided to the moment, our earliest memory. And I always had this memory. I have a lot of really early memories of my childhood. I'm blessed in that way. And one of those really early memories, I was a baby lying on my back. And I remember the soft yellow blanket around me. I could hear my mom in the kitchen. And I was so young that I couldn't yet turn my body. I just was very aware of the environment. And the meditation was going right to the moment right before that memory. And I did. And I actually had remembrance of being the consciousness around my baby's body, and I hadn't fully immersed myself in the physical
Well,
form yet. And that was the moment. It was actually like somewhat of a micro trauma, I would say, or maybe more than that, but going from total awareness and feeling my mother and seeing everything and even having awareness of my father who was at work and how they and really having that total free awareness of everything and then entering into the immersion of my baby's body and feeling such limitation, not being able to move around was I didn't realize it was like somewhat of a little of traumatic memory, but in contemplating that meditation, this song came to me, and as I walked down the airport parkway on Christmas Day, this was what 2022, I think, and it was this simple song, and it was the profound. It was I love you, baby, with all that I am, with all that I am. I could sing it for you if you want, and that was the first song I sang to my daughter. And it was just as I sang it, because I didn't have anything to record, I just sung it for like probably, I don't know, 45 minutes, just up and down, because I really wanted to get in my body. So I didn't want to forget the harmonies and the melody and everything. And I, since that moment, I've shared it in a lot of spaces, and I realize it's meant for all of us to like sing to our baby, our inner baby, because we still have that part of ourselves, and all those things that we experienced are in our in our, our structure here. Like we're a living embodiment of that memory, right? Those waters that we carry. Um, and I wanted to share that with you because I found it was so profound what you said, and I didn't talk about it, but the juxtaposition of the playful laughter and the profound awe-struck gratitude that you're talking about, I feel is such an important marriage for this journey of awakening because we can't take ourselves too seriously. It's got to be fun. No one's going to want to do it especially on a massive level if it's taxing and we're like, okay, sacredness and stoicism.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, any of the great ones that I've had the privilege of being around all have that kind of instant laughter, and it's right close by. Reverend Michael is and I howling from time to time in the middle of our conversation when I would visit my wonderful, beautiful teacher, Dr. Boyd, in Chicago. We would sit in his office, and sometimes we were laughing so hard the guy in the office next to us was pounding on the ball because we were so loud. And people say, you want to make sure you're in contact with your inner child. Well, my inner child is on the outside. I'm only too happy to get on the floor with the kids
Yeah, me
and the
too.
dogs
Yeah.
and just by myself. It's hard these days because I get down on the floor with myself and the dogs come and smother me. But, it's the whole up and down. It's the whole yin and yang. It's the whole here and there and so forth that gets to be a whole
Mhm.
rather than a separate kind of experience. Because that's the point, is once you get to a certain place in your awareness and your enlightenment, you realize there is no separation.
Mhm. Yeah.
It just isn't. And that's when you can start unfolding into the levels of higher consciousness. And that's the game we're playing here. And the more
Mhm.
conscious you are, the more juicy a life you can enjoy. And
Yeah.
that's all I have to say about it.
Yeah, no kidding. There's such richness in every moment if we open ourselves to that awareness. And it's also juxtaposed with the paradox of being a human being and being aware of the challenges that others. And so it comes right back to the heart of what you said at the beginning. It's about being of service and allowing our light to shine, whether it's through laughter or joy. Me too. I love getting right down on the ground with children and talking to them as who they really are. Not this placating them in any ways. Like I have reverence for beings who are incarnating on the planet during such a massive shift. It's an opportunity to awaken, but it's also it's a roller coaster of experience because you're gonna experience like everything's gonna come up to be embraced, right? Probably lifetimes of experience, but also just the times in an emergent society and such a paradigm shift. So uh, we got to remember to have that fun and shine our life. Yeah, I wear my child. For years I probably was a little bit more serious, but now more and more, especially having a little. I mean, our daughter's 2.5 years young. She's just so hilarious, and she's got such a sense of humor. She cracks
Yeah.
me up all the time. It's such a
That's
wonder.
that's her job. That's her job. I was talking with my dear beloved Dr. Boyd at one point, and early on, I said, "So what's the thing with relationships? Why do we have relationships?" And as usual, he took a beat. He had a gleam in his eye, and he came back and he says, "Well, the only reason to have a relationship with someone is because it's fun."
I love that.
Nathaniel, I fell out of my chair onto the floor in his office laughing so hard because in one sentence the man had validated my entire life.
That's great. Oh my goodness. Born perfect with room for infinite improvement. Oh man, it really is a true joy and a lot of fun talking with you, Bill. I feel like we could probably talk for days,
Yeah,
and I love the the dynamic, playful, and deep wisdom of the energy that you bring. And I can see how you're just in your presence helping people find their connecting to their energy again. So thanks for being who you are. I feel like that's so important
thank
to
you.
acknowledge. Yeah.
Thank you. That's one of the things I always say is, be who you are because everyone else is taken.
Yeah. That's great. I want to touch a little bit on the ozone therapy, and I realize we're almost half past the into our second hour, so I don't know if you're okay to talk a little bit longer. Is that okay with
Sure,
you?
sure, sure,
Okay.
sure.
So ozone therapy, I mean, there's a lot of talk of breath work out there. A lot of people are doing pretty interesting things. People are having, transcendent experiences just from the breath, which I think is really valuable because I feel like there's a lot of other people chasing transcendent experiences through like plant medicines and stuff. And not that I have anything against all that, but there's a lot of containers that maybe are doing it for reasons that are not necessarily in aligned ways. So I feel like breath is a way that people can access. Do people have to go to a treatment center for ozone therapy, or can we create our own ozone? I don't know a lot about it.
Yeah, the gold standard use of ozone, which is the one that we do, is called high dose 10 pass ozone therapy. What we do is it's IV. We express about a cup and a half of blood out of the vein into a surgical bottle. We infuse that blood with medical grade ozone and oxygen, and then put that blood back in the vein.
Hmm.
In that bottle, it kills off the stuff that's causing interferences and trouble. And we
Okay.
do that out and in 10 times.
Okay.
So I believe there are places in Canada that are doing ozone therapy. I'm not quite sure. Of course, we do have people that fly into Los Angeles for the therapy and the stem cell therapy that we do here, which is utterly remarkable. Um, but the best use of ozone, yes, is an IV ozone therapy treatment where you get the blood cleaned. It's cleaning and detoxifying the blood, along with enhancing its abilities to really do well. Because the idea is you have little red blood cells that are round, plump, juicy grapes when you're 19 years old.
Mm,
And those little red blood cells expand easily and effortlessly. They take in light and oxygen
mm,
and nutrients and water. And then they take all of that around to the different parts of the body that need the light and the water and the nutrients and the oxygen. And then they contract easily and effortlessly
mm,
and push out the waste.
mm,
So that's the cycle of how your body takes care of itself, meaning you.
mm,
So then, as things progress, as we get toxins and pollutants and bugs and infections and stress and lack of sleep and lack of exercise and malnutrition and eating bad foods, stuff starts to accumulate. And so that's one of the main reasons why you want to attend to all these different bits and pieces that we talk about at Advanced
mm,
BioCell, which is cleansing and detoxification, all kinds of ways to do that, proper nutrition, so that you're taking in the nutrition that your body actually needs. We do what's called hair tissue mineral analysis,
mm,
and that gives us a real specific digital measurement of each individual's biochemistry, so we know what the imbalances are. The laboratory makes a supplement recommendation from products that they have designed to make those changes. So you don't have to guess about what supplements to take at Whole Foods anymore.
mm.
And we have consultations to
That's
direct
that's
people, because
important.
that's called metabolic function. That's how your body makes the energy. There we are, energy again.
Yeah.
And then the ozone has tremendous impact on your body's ability to make that energy. So
Mm,
that's really the whole thing. There's stuff that you'll do that detox and cleanse, which is one of the first steps. And then the other part of it is what you'll add into the picture to help your body sustain itself and give you the energy that you need, and all these bits and pieces. People say to me, okay, so what does it take to live well? And the answer is it takes everything.
mm, mm,
Some of it you don't have to pay for. All you got to do is sit still and be quiet. And that takes a lot of stuff, takes care of a lot of stuff. And then speak kindly. One of the most important things that people would be well deserved to understand is that whether it's a business or whether it's a family, it's really very, very crucial to be able to communicate unemotionally and humbly, even when it gets gnarly, even when it gets prickly,
mm,
especially when it gets prickly.
mm.
You want to be able to say, listen, here's how I feel. You want to be able to say it in a way that's not angry, that's not freaked out. And you want to be able to do that without breaking the china.
Yeah.
These are all simple kind of steps that people can take to help evolve themselves to the place where they can take better care of themselves and the people that they love. Deepak Chopra says, you should always trust your gut because it has not yet evolved to the level of self-doubt.
Interesting. Interesting. And like there's a lot of talk of emotional co-regulation and how important that is for conscious parenting. And also I see it as just a pillar of mastery, right? Because really our only creative tools are mindset and our emotional patterns, right? And so when we can be able to be with those and feel those things, but not have them, um, you know, and not have them be reactive and interfere also with relationships, like what you were saying, our relationships not only are they meant to be fun, it's also what creates a healthy you know human being is having healthy relationships, having healthy communities, but it does start within us. I'm certainly interested in looking at bringing our family because we are going to be coming to LA for a visit. Bill, I'd love to look at your services and what we can do for our family. Our Like I said,
Okay.
our daughter is very sensitive, so I'd love to connect with you in that. For those listening, how can people connect with what you do? I'm sure there's a lot of people who'd be interested in that level of service.
Oh, sure, sure. Advanced BioCell. My website is just that, ADVANCED advancedbiocell.com. You can call us. I don't know if Canadian calls to the US are exactly a good idea, but you might have some American people. 310-550-6767. And you can email care@advancedbiocell.com. Call us, contact us. We love communicating with people. It's why we're here.
Mm, that's wonderful, Bill. And we'll certainly put those in the show notes as well for folks. I'm I love asking this question to our inspiring guests. If you had a megaphone, you could talk to everyone in the world all at once, and everyone could hear you. What would you like to share?
I would like to say, love one another, be still, and be quiet.
Hmm. Such a beautiful share, and so it's such an important message. Always. Thank you so much, Bill. What an honor I feel to have been with you during these moments, and I really appreciate your gifts and your message and the service that you provide to those you touch. And for being you, you're providing a whole lot of service just to all of existence. So I really appreciate that. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience or talk about before we sign off for today?
No, I really appreciate having been here with you, Nathaniel. It's been a really enjoyable conversation. Thank you. I so appreciate this time.
Thank you so much, Bill. I really appreciate you as well. Well, on that note, I'll invite our daughter, Luciana, to come and say thanks for watching, everyone. And to all of our listeners out there, best wishes and highest blessings. May we find that moment of stillness and that kindness that Bill is sharing with us alive in our hearts. So thank you so much, Bill. Have a wonderful day. Blessings to you and yours as well.
And to you, Nathaniel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. You say ciao ciao.
Bye.
I love you so much.